Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of I'm That Proverbs 31 Girl. And y'all look, this is actually my shirt. It says I'm That Proverbs 31 Girl. Yeah, that's what it says. And we're going to talk about that one day as well. We're going to talk about this one day as well, sometime in the future. But thank you for joining us for this week's episode of I'm That Proverbs 31 Girl. I am your host, Cynthia McClary. Of course, I do want you all to subscribe, listen, of course, and subscribe to our podcast. You can offer feedback, things like that, all that kind of wonderful, beautiful things. If you get your podcast someplace and you can't find I'm That Proverbs 31 Girl, drop a comment drop a comment below. Let us know where you're at, because we want to be where you're at, because we want to do this thing together. Why? Because it's better when you do life together. So we want to do life with you. That's what we want to do. We want to do it with you. And also please, follow us on our social media channels. That's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. They're all listed as Cynthia McClary. All right. So we're going to go ahead and dive straight into the continuation of our series, The Story of the Cucumber. You know, we are the cucumber, and we're using 1 Colossians chapter 1, verses 13 through 14. We're using that as our foundational scripture. We've already talked about all of our firecracker words. And so last week, where we left off with the word even. We're talking about even, and we were also talking, when we left off last week, we were talking about the fact that God has delivered us from the power of darkness. And we talked about what darkness is. Darkness is anything that is in light. Anything that's not God's light. And I gave you my example of my struggle, which is the struggle with sweets and the struggle with bread. So my bread, it can be sweet, it can be savory, long as it's bread. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so that's where we left off. And I was saying that if you have an addiction, something that you keep going back to, know that you're not going back to that thing because God didn't deliver you from it. No, you're going back to that thing because you're not fully I want to say it this way. You're living in the past. Remember, we talked about, on one of the other episodes, we talked about, which word was this? Your freedom paper, your redemption, and how your freedom papers bought your redemption. And that basically means that you were freed from your past. Okay. Remember the power, the force, the strength, the rule of darkness that gripped you to the point that it did not want to let you go. And God just had to go in and tear you from that thing and then bring you into the kingdom of the Son of His love, in whom we have redemption through His blood, even the forgiveness of sins. So your addiction, your unhealthy cravings, gluttony. And please understand that gluttony, even though we associate gluttony with food, gluttony can be associated with the act of gluttony, or the, I don't want to call it a principle, the spirit of gluttony can also run rampant in other areas or deal with other parts or other things as well. It doesn't always have to be food. No, you could be a glutton for punishment. You can be You can be attracted to some type of addiction, like alcohol addiction, drug addiction, sex. You could be attracted to violence. You could be attracted to, and I shouldn't say attracted, but that thing where you can't get enough of something. Like, there are so many things that people may find themselves in a state of gluttony when it comes to. That could be shopping. You could be a shopping glutton. And you know what a shopping glutton is called? It's called a shopaholic. You could be a glutton for work. You know what that's called? A workaholic. Just like an alcoholic. I mean, so gluttony, even though we always associate it with food, it's a spirit, and it can appear and associate itself, attach itself to whatever it want to attach itself to. So that spirit of you can't get enough of it, that spirit of you overindulge in more than enough of it, that's gluttony. That's gluttony. So God don't have to say in the Bible, God don't have to say in the Bible, I don't know, I don't have a good example, that XYZ is a sin. Is it in the form of the spirit of gluttony? Okay, then you know what it is. It's called a sin. That's what it's called. It's called a sin. And so he's redeemed us. He's delivered us from that power that wants to keep sucking us back. And I want to tell us how to get free. We're already free. We got our freedom papers. So there should not be listen what I'm saying. There should not be anything that's controlling us, making us do what we don't want to do, what we know we shouldn't do, etc., etc., etc. Do you understand that? Nobody is exempt. Me included, not exempt. Not exempt. Nobody's exempt. Sorry. Nobody's exempt. Nobody's exempt. And so herein lies the problem. So God's already freed us. We have our freedom paper. So a chocolate cake, strawberry cake, whatever kind of cake should not be telling me what to do. Get up out of the bed and come and open this refrigerator and get me. What? And then I get up out of the bed, go into the kitchen, open the refrigerator. It's 49 o'clock in the morning, and I'm eating cake. When did the cake get voice to come knock on the door, knock on my bedroom door and say, hey, come get me? Herein lies the problem. We have been delivered. And remember, that's your past and all these other kind of stuff, everything connected to it. God delivered you. He fought. He chose. He released. He took the power. All of those wonderful things we already talked about. Here is the problem. We've been transformed. Number one is we've been transformed and we still remember who we were. We were transformed. Remember, he transported us from this place into the kingdom of the Son of his love. We've been transformed, changed, and the dichotomy. The two things, we've been transformed and we still remember who we were. Number two, we've been freed from our past and we carry our past with us into our present and our future. Remember, I think it was Paul that was talking about the war within us. You know, like, I want to do the right thing, but the things that I want to do, I find myself not doing. And then the things I don't be wanting to do, I find myself doing them things. Why? We've been transformed, but we still remember who we were. We've been freed, and we still we've been freed from the past, and we still carry the past with us into our present. And number three, these are the problems as to why we keep doing the stuff that don't got no power over us, but we keep doing it. Number three is we hold within us the promise of tomorrow and the memory of yesterday. So there's a struggle within us. A struggle within us that don't have to be. There's a struggle within us that does not have to be. We're holding the promise of tomorrow and the memory of the past. We've been freed from the past and we brought the past into our present and we take it into our future. We've been transformed and we still remember who we were. Now, and is a very important word. It's a conjunction. And conjunctions, they join stuff. They connect stuff. If you ever want to connect something, just throw an and in it and it will connect. I went to the store and I saw Sally. So I went to the store, I saw Sally. You want to connect them and make them one sentence? Just stick and in the middle. And now you got one bigger sentence because you got those two little sentences joined together. So and is a conjunction and it connects two things. But typically when you have an and, the purpose of and is to connect things that make sense. The purpose of and is to connect things that make sense, to connect things that are similar. I had an apple, which is a fruit, and an orange, which is another fruit. I went to the store, okay, that's telling me about an activity. And I didn't go to the store. That's a contradiction. How you go to the store, but you didn't go to the store? How did you go to the store and you didn't go to the store? How? Now, I know you probably thinking Instacart, but we ain't talking about that. No, we ain't talking about that. We ain't talking about that. So what we are doing in our lives is we have connected two things using and we've connected two things that are contradictory to each other. Transformed and we remember. Choose one or the other. You got to pick. Are you going to be transformed or are you going to remember? You're freed from the past. And you're going to carry the past? No. If you're freed from the past, then I need you not to carry your past into your present and into your future. You're holding the promise of tomorrow and the memories of yesterday? No. We have to choose because we can't hold two contradictions together because we already know what they do. They make us do stuff that we don't have to do. They make us appear to be under the power of something that is powerless, that God has taken the power from. Amos chapter 3 verse 3 says, can two walk together unless they are agreed? Like, do you know transformation and remembering who you were in your past, do you know that's a contradiction? Amos said, ma'am, you can't be walking in these two contradictions. Either you're going to walk in the transformation or you're going to walk in the past, which one it is. But you can't do both. No, you can't. You can't do both. Amos said, can two walk together unless they're agreed? Amos said, no, you can't do that. That's like trying to walk west while you're going east. Ma'am, those are two different directions. You can't go east and west at the same time. No, you can't go north and south at the same time. No, you can't. You ever heard a direction called north-south? Nope. You've heard southwest. Okay, so we were just talking about Amos 3:3. And Amos is like scratching his head. And Amos is asking, can two walk together unless they are agreed? And the long and short answer to that is no, that can't be done. Because we already said you cannot go north and walk south at the same time. Sir, it's just not possible. It's not possible. You can go northwest, you can go northeast, but you can't go north-south at the same, because they're polar opposites of each other. You can't go west and east at the same time. No, you cannot. It just can't be done. You can't be headed to California and South Carolina at the same time. You got to choose one or the other, but you can't do both. You can do them both in the sense that once you leave California, then you can come to South Carolina. But at the same time, simultaneous, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Not unless you're talking about you go to California and you have a virtual meeting in South Carolina, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about walking. We're talking about walking or driving to both places at the same time. Impossible. You can't do it. You can't do it. I don't care if you have a jet. You still can't do it. Your jet cannot go north and south at the same time. Directionally, it cannot be done. It's impossible. Because the contradictions, they're polar opposites of each other. So when we walk around in life transformed, but remembering who we were in our past, that's called a contradiction. And do you know what the enemy counts on? The enemy counts on us to not realize the contradiction. Because as long as we don't realize the contradiction, guess what he can do? Because guess what? She don't know her rights that are in the Freedom Papers. She don't know her rights. So I can still make her do whatever I want her to do. I can tell her at 4 a.m. in the morning when she's sound asleep, get up and go to that refrigerator and get you a brownie and eat it. Or whatever it is. If you don't, and here's the thing. Remember, your Freedom Papers, that's your identity. What should you always have on you every time you move? Every time you leave home? I was going to say something, but we ain't trying to plug nobody. You should have your identity with you. You should have your identifying papers with you. Okay? Every single time you get in that vehicle to drive, what you need on you. Either your permit if you're not a licensed driver, or you need what? Your driver's license. Because what? That's what you need. Because your driver's license and your permit, when they're not expired now, those are your freedom papers to drive. And guess what? You can drive every place, anywhere that those freedom papers give you access to drive to. And so the enemy is always counting on us, always betting on us. You know how the word of God says the enemy is walking around, he walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Listen, he's like, let me see who forgot that they free. Yeah, you know, Scent did pretty well last month. Let me see if she remember her freedom this month. Let me see if she remember she free. Go get that cake. Go get them cookies. And eat them all up. Don't save none. And you know what happens? Now, God didn't say, Cindy, you can't have... Cindy, you better not eat no cookies. You better not eat no cake. No, he said, girl, I built a stopping point in you. Cause why? Cause I know cake is good. God know cake is good. Yes, he do. God know cake is good. But he said, I built a stopping point in you. And when that flag, when that signal, that stopping point, you know, sometimes with food, your stopping point sometimes is, did you burp? That's called a signal. That's called your stomach done sent a message to your brain, girl. It's over. We through. I got enough. That's why, you know, they say you should eat slowly. And after you finish your meal, or after you finish whatever it is that you're eating, you should wait a moment to determine if you really is hungry. Because most of the time, listen, most of the time, when I go to that refrigerator again for something else, let me tell you what happens sometimes. When I touch the refrigerator door, burp, and it's like, girl, you full, go sit down. You full, go sit down. Go sit down. That's a signal. God put a signal in you because he knew we would forget. That's just like if you're on a road, let a four-way crossing, like a four-way stop. If you're on that road and the highway department, the state, whoever removes those stop signs, you know what you're gonna do? Keep on going through the thing. And then what's gonna happen? You're gonna have accidents. They got those stop signs because those stop signs are signals that, hold up, you need to pause and think about what you're about to do. And that God has built in us a signal. Sometimes it's a burp. Sometimes it might be something else. Sometimes it might just be, oh, girl, I flow. We have built in stuff to remind us of who we are. Cindy, I need you to say that louder, and this time say it enough so you can hear it in this ear. God has built in within us signals so that we remember who we are. Not who we were, but signals so we remember who we are. Now, with food, like I said, it's a burp. It's a burp. If you eat and you burp, or you eat and your stomach hurt, or you eat and, I don't know what some of the other signs might be, but we have built-in signals. So, you know what causes accidents, right? When you see the signal, but you decide to keep on going. That's how accidents are created. God said, I did not create you to have accidents. No, I have signals and alarms throughout your body. Yes, I do. Yes, he does. Sometimes we do what? Ignore the signals. Sometimes we do what? Ignore the alarms. And we just we just go straight past go. And now we got an accident on our hand that we got to deal with. So Amos says, can two walk together unless they are agreed? The answer is no. And then 2 Corinthians, verse 6 and 14 picks it right up, because they say, because, sometimes, how parents have to tell how parents have to tell kids more than once to do something before they actually do it a lot of times, like go clean your room. And they go in the room and then, they stay in the room long enough to have their room cleaned up all the way. And they spend that time in the room, and then they come out and they're like, yeah, and blah, 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 blah. And they start the conversation and playing and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, so you finish cleaning your room? And they take off upstairs because they know they haven't cleaned their rooms. Listen, that's how we be with the word of God. So God says, okay, I'm going to put it here in Amos. And because I know she didn't get it the first time, I'm going to put it right here in 2 Corinthians. So 2 Corinthians picks up what Amos said and ask. Well, it doesn't ask. It starts out first with telling us something. And it says, now, we typically use 2 Corinthians 6 and 14. We typically use it for other things. Listen at what it says, because it applies to what we're talking about right now. Okay, it says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Remember, 1 Colossians 1, 13 and 14 says, he delivered us from the power of darkness, right? And now, he delivered us from the power of darkness. And now we're in 2 Corinthians that says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. See, now we're thinking, well, unbelievers are just people who don't believe what we believe. Yeah, true. Okay. But what else can be considered unbelievers? Because the word of God says, don't tie yourself up. Don't be yoked together. Don't nestle. With unbelievers. Well, do you know what else can be considered an unbeliever? Those competing thoughts that we have, those thoughts that are contrary, that we're trying to carry together. Amos said, listen, girl, you got to put one of them things down. And here is 2 Corinthians telling us the same thing. Do not be unequally yoked. You know that the light is to transform us. We've been transformed. So you can't be walking in light and darkness at the same time. It's called contradiction. It's called get your life together. That's what it's called. Get your life together. Get yourself together. Snatch yourself up. Okay, you know how God snatched us from out of the part. He snatched the power of darkness. He snatched away the power of darkness. Snatch yourself. And I ain't just talking about you. Me too. Snatch yourself, girl. I need you to snatch yourself. Snatch yourself. Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. That's those competing thoughts. And so Paul says, cause what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? So what fellowship has faith, which is the faith in knowing that God delivered us from the power of darkness? That's faith. What fellowship does righteousness or faith has with lawlessness? Lawlessness is darkness. God delivered us from darkness. So even if we didn't know it, light is opposite of darkness. He delivered us from darkness. We can't walk with light and darkness together because they're contrary to each other. They be fighting each other. You know, I don't want to do the things I do, but I do them. You know what I'm saying? They be fighting each other. They be fighting each other. And the lawlessness is the doubt. The lawlessness is the doubt. It's also us remembering who we were in the past. It's us bringing our past with us into the present and into the future. It's us holding on to the memory of yesterday, the things that God delivered us from. So this is the problem. The problem is we have been made new. We've been made new, but we haven't become new. We've been made new, but we don't walk always in the newness that we've been made. So we've been made new, but we haven't become new. And that just means that we don't walk in the newness that we've been made. We try to walk with the contradictions, one in each hand. And Amos and Paul say, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. Because if you do that, you're going to find yourself always getting into an accident. Always. Without fail. Now, by chance, there might be a time or two when you're able to skip the accident because why? Ain't no cars coming at the four-way stop. But there's going to be an accident. And God says, that's not what, no, that's not what I created for you. No, ma'am. So that's the problem. That's the